Hello, senior seminar students. This video is going to provide a brief overview of the requirements for your Milestone 1 task. At this point, you have identified a topic, an area of interest that you will narrow down as you go through the literature, and you've also provided scholarly resources that relate to your topic. So digging into those articles, conducting your literature review will inform this introduction section, this draft of your introduction, which provides a foundation for your hypothetical study. Once again, this is a hypothetical research investigation. You are not actually carrying out a study. To that point, you are not permitted to recruit participants or use any real participants because that would require IRB approval, and in this 8-week course, that's just not feasible. All right, so digging in to the requirements. For this introduction, you are using the literature to provide a rationale for your proposal, for your research investigation. Why would your study be the next logical study in line based on what we already know about a topic? So you're going to identify a gap within the existing literature, and that gap will inform your research question and your research design. These bullets right here align with your rubric, which I'll get to in a second, but this is what should be included within your introduction section, within this draft. A brief overview of the topic that you selected, your thesis statement. What are you seeking to support? What is your main idea, your main argument? Your specific hypothesis. Remember, you're not just writing a research paper, you're putting together a research investigation, a research study. And that study is guided by the research question and guided by the hypothesis. So be sure to include that in your introduction. You're going to go through the literature and see what other researchers have done and in terms of methodology, and include that, a brief statement about the methodology that you will use within your proposed study. You're also going to discuss the existing knowledge. What do we know? When you dig into the literature, that will guide you in terms of understanding what we know about a particular topic, whether your topic relates to ADHD or autism or learning. What do we know in that general topic? And as you dig further and further into the literature, your topic should become narrower and narrower. This will inform your lit review of resources relevant to your chosen topic. Be sure to support your research. In other words, provide a rationale for why this research, the study that you're designing, that you're proposing, should be the next logical step within the existing literature. In other words, situate your study within the extant literature. Now, right down here, you will see some questions that will prompt your thinking, and you should respond to each of these questions with sufficient details in your literature review and introduction section as a whole. So here, describe the existing knowledge. What is already known about the topic? What is not known? What is not known should be your research gap leading to your research question. How will your proposed study add knowledge to what is missing? So in other words, it will probably address that gap and contribute knowledge related to that specific gap that you identify. This is important right here, the critical review. Provide a critical review of the existing studies. Don't just mention what the studies did, but as a researcher, look at some of the limitations, some of the flaws, that these studies included, whether design limitations, methodological limitations. Use those limitations to make a coherent argument for your proposed investigation. So instead of just providing a summary, provide a critical analysis of these studies. And let me scroll down to the rubric. Just to point out, introduction should be about 5 to 6 pages in length. Remember to adhere to the APA guidelines for in-text citations, for your reference list, and within the paper, make sure you use 12-point Times New Roman font. You have 1-inch margins all around, which is the standard setting, and any references to other studies should be included in proper APA format. Furthermore, make sure everything, title page, reference page, and the body of your paper is double spaced. My suggestion is to print this rubric out, have it handy as you develop each component of your draft of the introduction. If you have any questions, be sure to reach out to your instructor. Happy writing.